Hey guys, tonight we're going to climb aboard a creaking, groaning pirate ship somewhere in the late 1600s or early 1700s, floating on a sea that stretches endlessly into the fog. You're tired, sunburnt, hungry, and if we're honest, probably about to eat something that hasn't been considered food for a couple hundred years. You probably wouldn't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step below deck, ducking beneath thick wooden beams and the damp ropes that sway like sleeping serpents overhead. The smell hits you first. It's a low, stale stink of salt, wet timber, and something vaguely meaty, something that smells like it's been forgotten on a windowsill in the sun for just a little too long. This is the galley. Calling it a kitchen would be generous. What you see before you is more of a fire hazard than a workspace. A tiny brick hearth sits wedged between barrels and crates. There's a blackened iron pot perched crookedly on a grate, swaying with every tilt of the ship. The hearth isn't always burning. In fact, it's often cold, because fire aboard a wooden ship is a gamble with every life on board. There's a wooden bench nearby, where something resembling a cook sits peeling a grayish root with a blade that has seen better centuries. His shirt is stained with grease, sweat, and time. He hums tunelessly as he works, unbothered by the rat darting beneath his stool. You stand back, observing this sacred and horrifying space, this place where nourishment becomes a matter of sheer luck. Food isn't stored neatly here. It's jammed into barrels, wrapped in waxy cloth, or suspended in nets like trophies of poor decisions. Meat hangs from hooks overhead, dried, smoked, or salted into an unrecognizable state. Bread lives in crates, if you can call it that, and anything fresh is long gone, either eaten, spoiled, or offered to the sea. A widely accepted fact. Pirate galleys were rudimentary at best. Most ships had no true kitchen space, just a corner set aside with a small fire pot and whatever tools the crew could cobble together. Cooking at sea was dangerous, time-consuming, and often more symbolic than functional. A lesser-known detail, some pirate ships had a rotating role for the cook, often filled by whoever had the least other utility, meaning your ship's cook might have been the worst fighter, the worst climber, or the guy who just lost at cards. The cook tonight is stirring a gray stew that clings to the sides of the pot like regret. You watch as he ladles it into shallow wooden bowls with visible bits of something, root vegetables maybe, or just roots. Something fatty floats along the top like it's trying to escape. It fails. You don't ask what's in it. No one ever does. That's part of the code. You eat what you're given, or you don't eat at all. And hunger is a mean, persuasive thing. You take your bowl, nod in silent thanks or apology, and sit cross-legged on the floor nearby. The others are already eating, faces expressionless, chewing with slow, deliberate rhythm. You try the first bite. It's warm, salty, gritty. Not good, but not immediately fatal. That's about the highest praise you can give to food aboard a pirate ship. You tell yourself it's fine. You try not to imagine what the chewy bit used to be. You hope it was once a vegetable. You keep chewing. Historians still wonder how pirates managed to survive on such poor diets, how they kept fighting, sailing, looting, and surviving week after week on food that barely qualified as nourishment. Some believe their bodies adapted, others say it was sheer willpower, or maybe it was just the rum dulling their senses enough to power through. You glance around. The cook is now slicing something that might be old pork, or could be salted seal, or maybe just a very sad fish. He tosses it into a second pot without ceremony. The fire crackles briefly, then dies back down to a weak orange glow. The room sways. A drop of something condensation, hopefully, plops onto your sleeve from the ceiling. You take another bite and breathe through your mouth. And yet, in this dim, smoky corner of a death-trap ship on an endless sea, you realize something strange. This is home now. This is how you live. And more alarmingly, it's how you eat. You're back above deck now. Bowl long empty salt, on your tongue's stomach turning with both gratitude and suspicion. The wind cools your face as you stand near a crate half covered with a grimy old sail. One of the crew grunts, yanks it open, and pulls out what looks, if you squint hard and have absolutely no expectations, like a loaf of bread. It's not. It's a hard, pale rectangle, speckled with flecks of something dark and crawling. Welcome to the pirate staple, hardtack, or as you now know it, ship's biscuit. You tap it against the railing. It knocks like a wooden block. You tap it again. Same sound. This thing could stop a bullet. You briefly consider using it as a weapon. Some of the older crew probably have. A widely accepted fact. Ship's biscuit was a core part of pirate diets. Cheap, portable, dry, and able to last for years. Literally years. As in, it could cross oceans without changing much, unless you count accumulating extra inhabitants. A lesser known detail. Sailors didn't just eat these biscuits, as they were many would soak them in brine, ale, or even stew to soften them up. Not out of preference, but necessity, unless of course you liked chipped teeth. You take a cautious bite. Well, you try to. It resists you. You gnaw at a corner and manage to break a chunk off. It's dry, beyond dry. It absorbs what little moisture you have left in your mouth and replaces it with a sandy grit. There's a hint of something bitter, something old, the taste of centuries. You notice a tiny hole in the surface, then another. You know what that means. You brace yourself, flip the biscuit over, and there they are, little squirmers, weevils, tiny beetles, long dead, or perhaps just resting, tucked deep into the bread, like raisins made of nightmares. The others see you inspecting it and laugh, not cruelly, but with the weathered camaraderie of people who've all eaten worse. One of them holds up his own biscuit and mimics shaking it like dice before eating. Get the loose ones out first, he mutters. You brush yours off and keep chewing. The sun rises higher, casting sharp light across the deck. The biscuit crumbles slowly in your hand, and even more slowly in your mouth. You soak the rest in your tin mug of weak ale, watching it soften just enough to finish without risking your molars. Historians still debate how many sailors suffered long-term effects from subsisting on this type of food. Some accounts claim men would develop ulcers, gum disease, or even hallucinations, not just from the lack of nutrients, but from the organisms living inside what they ate. You take your time with the last bite. You've learned the rhythm of it now. Chew, wince, swallow, hope. You wash it down with another sip of bitter ale that's not exactly refreshing, but helps keep the grit from settling in your throat. There's something strangely meditative about this moment. The ship rocks gently beneath your boots. A gull cries somewhere above. You lean against the side rail, biscuit dust on your shirt, and feel a little more like a pirate than you did yesterday. You're not entirely sure if that's a good thing, but you're sure of this: you'll never look at bread the same way again. You've grown used to the smell by now, that heavy, persistent mix of old wood, salt, and whatever passed for food in this floating wooden world. But today, it's different. There's something sharper riding the air, a sourness beneath the salt. It coils into your nose before you even reach the galley. It makes your eyes sting. You approach the food line anyway because you're starving. Not "I skipped breakfast" starving. Not "my diet's going great" starving. The kind of hungry that makes you stop caring what your food looks like or whether it once tried to crawl away. You can hear your stomach growl over the creaking of the ship. The cook barely looks at you. His ladle scrapes the bottom of the pot, dragging up a heavy spoonful of something wet, glistening and beige. There are chunks. Some might be potato, others not so much. He slaps it into your bowl with the grace of a man who stopped caring weeks ago. You nod, because that's the ritual. Take it, eat it, live. You settle near the mast, where a few other crewmen are already squatting with their food. One's got the hollow eyes of a man, chewing without tasting. Another stares at his bowl with quiet hatred. No one talks. You plunge your spoon into the mixture and lift a bite toward your mouth, and then you see it, a tiny white squiggle curling at the edge of the bowl. It's not moving fast, but it's moving, undeniably, unmistakably alive. You freeze. For 1 second, you hesitate. You look up. One of the older pirates catches your eye and shrugs. "Extra protein," he mutters. Then he keeps eating, a widely accepted fact. Food infestation was normal aboard ships. The barrels and sacks weren't airtight, weren't sealed, and weren't protected from heat or moisture. If it wasn't moldy, it was crawling. If it wasn't crawling, it was hard as rock. And the worst part? They kept eating it. Every day. A lesser known detail: some pirates developed a system for casually inspecting their food without seeming ungrateful. A flick of the spoon here, a tilt of the bowl there, just enough to check for movement. You learn it fast, or you suffer for it. You stare at your bowl, spoon still suspended. The thing, worm larva, future nightmare, wiggles deeper into the slop. You fish it out with the tip of your knife, lay it on a scrap of wood, and try not to think about the ones you don't see. Another sailor beside you slurps from his bowl like it's the finest stew he's ever tasted. He doesn't flinch, doesn't care. You can't tell if he's brave, desperate, or simply too far gone. Your own hunger tightens its grip. You scoop up another spoonful, carefully this time, and bring it to your mouth. You chew, slowly. The texture is not great. It's slimy, gritty, soft in the wrong places. It's hot, at least. That's something. Maybe enough to kill the worst of the bacteria. Maybe. You take another bite. It tastes like overcooked onion and something metallic, possibly blood, possibly rust. You keep going. Historians still wonder how the human body tolerated this diet for so long. No refrigeration, no proper hygiene, no nutritional value. Not really, just calories. bad ones, and the hope that today's food won't be what kills you. You finish your bowl, every last scoop. You sit back against a coil of rope and breathe through your mouth, trying not to taste the afterthoughts left behind. A rat scurries past your boot. You don't even flinch. That's the thing. After a while, the disgust fades. Your standards shift. You stop craving flavor. You crave only fullness. And the worms, they just become another ingredient. You close your eyes and feel the ship rock you gently side to side. For now you're full. For now you're still here. You're still full. Or at least you were. The warmth of that last meal has settled deep into your gut, like a question you don't want the answer to. But it's been hours. The sun has climbed. Sweat's begun to cling under your shirt, and your body, driven more by habit than hope, is hungry again. That's when the call comes. Salted pork for dinner. You follow the scent, or more accurately, the suggestion of it. There's smoke in the air. Not much, just a faint hint of scorched grease and driftwood. The cook has fired up the galley again, and the rumor is spreading fast. Real meat. The line forms without a word. Men queue like ghosts, not because the food will run out. There's always something to eat, but because the closer you are to the pot, the warmer it'll be. You edge up slowly. A sailor in front of you grunts as he receives his slab, a grayish pink cut of meat, riddled with cracks of salt and shimmering with fat that's refused to melt. It jiggles slightly as it lands in his bowl. You reach the front. The cook barely glances at you. His knife scrapes against something dense and fibrous. He carves off a chunk and slaps it down into your hands, wrapped in old cloth. No plate today, just meat and fingers. It's heavier than you expected. Not quite warm, not quite cold. You lift it toward your nose and wince. A widely accepted fact. Salt pork was a staple for seafaring men, used precisely because it didn't spoil easily. Packed in barrels of brine so salty it could kill a small garden. The meat could last months, though what it tasted like after that was a different story. A lesser known detail. The salt didn't just preserve it, it transformed it, hardened it, mutated it. The meat wasn't tender, it was rubbery, veined with gristle that resisted even the sharpest knife, and salty enough to dry your throat from 50 paces. You take your first bite. It's like chewing an oiled rope. The outer edge crunches faintly with crusted salt. The inside is dense, chewy, and oddly sour. Your molars protest. Your jaw flexes, shifts, and keeps working because stopping would only prolong the agony. There's no seasoning, no pepper, no herbs, just salt, enough to preserve the meat, enough to mummify you from the inside out. Around you, the others are chewing in silence. Some saw their slabs against the ship's rail with knives. One soaks his in ale to soften it. Another wraps it in hardtack, as if two evils will cancel each other out. You admire the optimism. A few sailors chew slowly with eyes half closed, like they're somewhere else, maybe remembering something better. An orange, a warm loaf of bread, a roast pig back home. Maybe they're just trying not to taste it. You notice something dark along the edge of your cut. A vein, a bruise. You don't look closely. You chew on. Historians still wonder how men avoided dying outright from the amount of salt they consumed. Dehydration was a constant risk. Some claim they drank more watered down rum than water just to balance it. Others say their bodies simply adapted, sweating out what they couldn't handle. You take a long sip of your drink. It does nothing. The salt lingers on your tongue, your lips, your teeth. Even the inside of your cheeks burn a little. The back of your throat feels tight, parched. You tear off the last bite and force it down. One of the crew nearby offers a sardonic smile and taps his own stomach. Still better than rat, he says. You're not sure he's joking. You nod and toss the greasy cloth overboard. It sinks without a sound. As the wind cools your sweat, you lean back against the mast and close your eyes. The salt pork settles like a brick inside you. You can feel it there, just existing, not digesting, not nourishing, just occupying space. But it's food, and out here, food doesn't have to taste good. It only has to stay inside you, and maybe, just maybe, not kill you. You smell it before you see it. Something fermented. Sour? Yes, but also something deeper, like mildew left in the sun, or wet rope that never dried. It slithers through the air and clings to your tongue before a single bite touches your lips. It's not the first time you've smelled it. It won't be the last. And yet, every time, it surprises you. You follow the scent below deck, where the barrels are kept. They're massive things. Old, sweating, bristling with iron hoops that creak and moan as the ship rocks. Some of them haven't been opened in weeks. Some shouldn't be opened at all. But today, one of them is. You watch as a sailor jams a crowbar into the swollen wood, cracking the top with a sound like brittle bone. A burst of air escapes, a puff of ancient breath, and then the smell floods the corridor. You're not the only one who flinches. The sailor reaches in with a ladle and pulls out something beige, wet, and stringy, possibly pickled, possibly a root, possibly not. He offers it to the cook, who shrugs and pours it into a pot with the rest of the evening's mystery stew. You stare at the open barrel. What's inside looks like it once had a name, maybe even a plant family, but now it just looks tired, limp, floating in brine so murky it's nearly black. There's something oily on the surface, and tiny bubbles twitch and pop as you move closer, a widely accepted fact. Food stored in barrels was the lifeline of sea travel. Pickled cabbage, preserved fruits, salted meats, all packed away for months, sometimes years, before being cracked open again. A lesser-known detail, barrels themselves often became death traps. If they leaked or warped or weren't sealed right, the contents fermented, or worse, they rotted, grew, changed. And pirates, hungry and far from land, didn't always have the luxury of throwing spoiled goods overboard. You dip a ladle into the brine. It resists. There's a slick film on top that clings to the wood. What you pull out smells of vinegar and decay. You swallow hard. Then you take a bite. It crunches. A little. Not the satisfying crunch of a fresh vegetable. No, this is a squeaky, sour, rubbery crunch that makes your back teeth itch. Your tongue recoils. Your eyes water. But you chew. It tastes like salt and sadness, like the memory of something edible. There's an aftertaste that makes you blink hard, like your body is deciding whether to keep it or send it back up. You swallow anyway. One of the men beside you claps your shoulder and grins. That means it's still good, he says, wiping his nose on his sleeve. If it doesn't bite back, it's fine. You smile weakly, then you take another bite. Historians still wonder how sailors kept from dying of botulism or severe foodborne illness with these barrel-stored pickled nightmares. Some claim it was the high vinegar and salt content that saved them. Others suggest they just got lucky. You scrape the edge of the barrel with your spoon, lifting out a soft clump of something translucent. It wobbles. You try not to look directly at it. Just hold your breath and eat. The trick you learn is not to ask. Not the cook, not the sailors, not even yourself. What's in the barrel is dinner. The barrel says you will eat, and you obey. You finish the bowl slowly, each bite a minor battle, each chew an act of maritime defiance. The others don't seem to notice. They're already moving on, talking about weather and sails and watch duty, like nothing ever happened, like the barrel didn't lie to them all. You sit for a while longer in the dim, rocking corridor. The wood creaks beneath you. The lantern flickers. Your stomach rumbles, not out of protest, but confusion. And the barrel, open and still, watches you back. You're starting to recognize the signs. The moment the cook begins carving something with both hands and his entire shoulder, you know it's meat. Not the good kind, not tender. This one requires effort, elbow grease, sharp tools, and possibly a small prayer. He grunts as he saws through it with a dull blade, his knuckles white against the handle. A flap of grayish flesh finally peels free, stiff and reluctant, like it would have preferred to stay wherever it was buried in that barrel of brine. He tosses it on a board with a wet slap. It doesn't bounce, it just holds its shape, unnervingly solid. Your turn. He hands you a slice, thinner than your finger and twice as stubborn. It's cold, waxy, the color of stone left in the sun too long. You hold it in your palm, uncertain whether to chew it or interrogate it. A widely accepted fact, preserved meat on pirate ships was rarely fresh. It was often so oversalted and dried that it had the consistency of leather and required hours of boiling if you were lucky enough to have fuel for fire. A lesser-known detail, the meat was sometimes whale blubber or horse meat, scavenged from wreckage, or livestock salted long before you ever joined the crew. In some cases, historians suspect even tougher sources, meat unfit for sale on land, but just acceptable enough for desperate men at sea. You bite in. Nothing happens. The meat doesn't yield. Your jaw flexes again. You bite harder. It pushes back. For a second, you consider pulling out your knife just to carve your mouthful into smaller, more manageable sorrows. But instead, you gnaw slow and steady. Your teeth scrape salt crystals like sand off a rock. The edges are dry, almost brittle, but the center resists like it's still alive. The taste is aggressive, not spoiled. Not exactly, but old, bitter. Maybe even a little sweet in the wrongest way possible, like licking a penny. If pennies had veins, you look around. Some of the men are already chewing with dead eyes. One has wrapped his meat in a strip of soaked hardtack, trying to pretend it's a sandwich. Another dips it in rum. Desperation leads to creativity. You guess. You pull at a strip of gristle that stretches like rope. It finally gives way with a quiet snap, leaving you wondering which part of the animal this was and whether it mattered. Historians still wonder whether this food built resilience or just slowly broke the body down. Muscle loss, malnutrition, cracked teeth, stomach ulcers, all byproducts of eating food more suited for boot making than nourishment. You manage to chew your piece down to a swallowable state. It's slow, meditative in a way. You have to concentrate. Think about the motion of your jaw, the way your throat readies for the texture. The moment your stomach will accept the peace offering, you swallow, and somehow you're still alive. The sun slants through the open hatchway, casting golden light across the ship's battered boards. You lean back against a coiled rope, chewing the last strands of meat, your mouth sore, your thoughts far away, and then, in a moment of dangerous honesty, you admit it. You'd eat it again, not because it was good, but because it didn't kill you. And on this ship, that's the highest praise a meal can earn. You don't expect much from shipboard cheese. Frankly, you didn't expect cheese at all. But this morning, word passed down the deck like a rumor soaked in rum. A barrel cracked open in the hold, and inside, moldy, half-sunken, but unmistakable, was cheese. Someone found cheese, and not just any cheese. Good cheese, they claimed, the kind that bites you back. You shouldn't be excited, but you are. Desperate times do strange things to a man's hopes. You descend into the hold with a little too much spring in your step. The others are already gathering around the barrel like it's sacred. One by one, chunks are being hacked off with small knives and passed around. There's laughter, a rare sound. That's your first warning. You step forward and get your piece, a wedge the size of your palm, damp with age, shot through with veins of something blue-green and fuzzy. It smells like feet. No, not feet. Like feet that made a terrible mistake and were left to ponder it in the dark. A widely accepted fact, cheese was a common food on ships in the early days of seafaring, especially hard cheeses like cheddar or Parmesan, which could survive long voyages better than soft varieties. A lesser-known detail, pirates often found themselves eating cheese that had gone well beyond aged and straight into sentient. Mold was expected. Smell was unavoidable. Some believed the stinkier, the safer. It meant bacteria had done their work, and now they were gone. Hopefully, you bring the cheese to your lips and take a nibble. It bites first. Your tongue reels. It's sharp, salty, bitter, then weirdly creamy, then bitter again. It's like the flavor is arguing with itself, punching its way around your mouth, looking for an exit. Your sinuses flare, your jaw tightens, and then you take another bite, because underneath the horror, there's something good. Not delicious, exactly, but complicated. Like your mouth just got into a bar fight with history. Around you, the others are chewing thoughtfully, some with grimaces, some with small, startled smiles. One sailor's got tears in his eyes, not sadness, just the sheer strength of the flavor. Another pats his belly and says, "That'll keep us breathing for a week." Someone else mutters, "Or kill us by morning," and everyone laughs. You eat slowly. Each bite is a challenge and a reward. You chew carefully, because there's a chance, however small, that this cheese has developed surprises inside, like mites or worms or God knows what. Historians still debate the health impact of long-aged ship cheese. Some claim it provided essential fats and calories. Others argue it introduced harmful molds and toxins that sped up the decline of already malnourished bodies. Pirates didn't care either way. If it didn't rot their stomach in the first 12 hours, they chalked it up as a win. You finish the last corner of your wedge and wipe your fingers on your shirt. The smell lingers in your nostrils, in your clothes, maybe even in your soul. But your stomach is warm now. You feel full in a way you haven't for days. Heavier, grounded, as if that terrible wedge gave you some kind of strange fermented strength. You lean back against a barrel, the same one that birthed the cheese, and sigh. The sea rocks gently. Someone burps, loud, wet, and unashamed. You smile. Out here, you take what you can get. And if that means your best meal of the week came from a barrel of sentient cheese, well, that's just pirate life. It's the middle of the night when the first raindrops hit. Soft, tentative taps on the deck above, like fingers drumming on an old drumhead. You're awake. Not that sleep ever truly comes out here, just long stretches of blinking at the dark, and you sit up, heart suddenly alert. Not the sideways, angry kind that ruins sails and sends men sliding across the deck. No, this is the good kind, the kind that might save you. You scramble up with the others, barefoot and blinking in the moonlight. The clouds stretch wide overhead, low and thick. Rain falls steadily now, pattering across the deck in a rhythm that feels like music. Half the crew is already on their feet, dragging out barrels, open chests, buckets, anything that can hold liquid. They don't speak, they just move. A widely accepted fact. Fresh water was the most precious resource on a pirate ship, stored in wooden casks that quickly grew foul. It spoiled fast. Men often went thirsty, or drank water that smelled like rot and tasted like regret. A lesser-known detail, some pirates fashioned rain-catching systems using sails or tarps stretched taut across the deck, guiding the rain into barrels, using ropes and channels. It wasn't elegant, but it was brilliant, and sometimes life-saving. You find your station, holding one end of a canvas scrap that funnels the water into a barrel at your feet. It splashes in, cool and clean. Some of it misses, dripping down your wrists and arms, and you laugh softly, letting the cold soak your shirt. It feels like forgiveness. One man strips off his shirt and just stands there, mouth open, letting the water pour over him. Another swears it's the best rain he's ever tasted, even though he says that every time. Nobody calls him out. We all need something to believe in. You dip a cup into the barrel as it fills and take a long, greedy drink. And it is good. Better than good. It's real, cold, clean, alive. None of the mustiness of stored water. None of the aftertaste of rope, mold, or barrel wood. Just water, straight from the sky, tasting like salvation. Your body drinks like it's trying to replace every cell. You gulp it down and feel it hit your stomach, fresh and unfamiliar. You're used to water that has to be boiled, flavored with lemon if you're lucky, or mixed with rum if you're desperate. But this is how water is supposed to be. Historians still debate how long pirates could go between real sources of water. Some suggest ships had to anchor near land every few weeks just to refill barrels from springs or rivers. Others say rainwater alone kept them going longer than expected, depending on the season and the route. Tonight, though, there's no debate. The sky has delivered a gift. You pass your cup to someone else and lift your arms to the sky. The rain runs down your neck, into your sleeves, across your spine. You're soaked, shivering, but you don't care. No one does. Even the rats seem calmer. Eventually, the rain slows. The barrels are full or full enough, and men start to cover them again, tying lids tight, stowing them below. A few extra rags get wrung out into mugs. Every drop counts. You stay on deck a little longer, watching the last of the droplets shimmer down the sailcloth, listening to the ship breathe as the wind returns. You're not warm, you're not dry, but you're not thirsty. And for once, that feels like victory. By now, you know the drill. You smell the fire first, charred wood and something vaguely flour-like. Then the scraping, always the scraping, metal on metal, or knife on plank, the sound of sailors attempting to break bread with tools instead of teeth, because it's not bread, it's hardtack. You're handed your portion without ceremony, a flat, square slab that looks like it was cut from a sheet of drywall. It's off-white, pocked with holes, and somehow manages to feel both chalky and like concrete. You knock it on the railing out of habit. The dull thud tells you everything you need to know. It's still good. Unfortunately, a widely accepted fact, hardtack was the go-to carbohydrate for seamen across centuries. Made from flour, water, and salt, it was baked until nearly indestructible. The goal wasn't flavor, it was survival. These dry biscuits could last months, even years, and survive infestations that would reduce other food to dust. A lesser-known detail, pirates sometimes carved dates or jokes into their hardtack to pass the time or mark how long it had been since they'd last seen land. One famous account mentions a sailor carving his own name and forgetting he had already done so the month before. Nobody blamed him. The sea eats memory. You take your first bite, or try to. Your teeth bounce off the surface like you've bitten into a seashell. You try again. Nothing. A third attempt, and your molar whispers that it's not getting paid enough for this. Eventually you cheat. You soak it in your water, watching the edges soften slowly, like a cliff face under gentle rain. After a few minutes, it's just edible, not soft, just no longer dangerous. It tastes like nothing, or possibly like dust that was once bred in a past life. There's a faint saltiness, but no richness, no softness, just the dry press of calories. The man beside you bites his hardtack directly and wrenches a piece off with an audible crack. You wince. He doesn't. Gotta keep the jaw strong, he grins, already chewing. You nod, mouth full of paste now, or get a wooden tooth. Historians still wonder how sailors avoided losing all their teeth to this kind of food. In reality, they often didn't. Tooth decay and gum disease were rampant, and hardtack certainly didn't help. Some softened it with broth, rum, or even soup if they were lucky. Most just learned to chew slowly and live with the pain. You turn your biscuit over and notice a dark spot on the back, probably a bit of flour that burned. Probably you decide not to look closer. Another sailor nearby is carving his name into his biscuit with a nail. It's something to do, something to mark the day. Others are stacking theirs like tiles, building little towers before breaking them apart again. The things are so dry, they don't even leave crumbs. You finish the last bite with effort, then wash it down with a sip of tepid water. It doesn't help much. You feel like you just chewed on driftwood, and your jaw will probably ache for the rest of the night. But your stomach, it's no longer empty. You wipe your hands on your shirt and pocket the corner you didn't eat. Could be useful later, to chew to wedge under a table leg, or to defend yourself if it comes to that. In the world of pirate cuisine, hardtack is both weapon and meal, and somehow you're getting used to it. You've seen a lot of things by now. Moody cheese, whale jerky, rum that could strip paint, but nothing quite prepares you for today's protein surprise. It starts like any other galley call, low voices, a rising smell, the clink of ladles in tin bowls. You shuffle up to the pot with the others, bowl in hand, stomach low on patience. The stew sloshes as it's poured. It's grayish, slightly lumpy, normal. But something's moving. You blink, lean in. And yes, there it is. A squirm, a wriggle, a little white larva doing a slow, contented dance atop your spoonful of mush. The cook sees your face and shrugs. Extra meat, a widely accepted fact. Pirate food was frequently infested. Flour got weevils. Dried meat attracted flies. Barrels bred things that crawled and slithered. Maggots were common in everything from biscuit tins to stew pots. Food was not sterile. It was alive. A lesser-known detail, some pirates didn't even remove the maggots. They believed the wriggling little beasts meant the meat hadn't spoiled completely. If it was good enough for the maggots, it was good enough for them. Others scraped them off, squinted, and carried on chewing. You stir the stew gently. 3 more maggots peek out, writhing in the gravy like they own the place. You breathe out slowly. The smell isn't too bad. Onions, maybe, or what once resembled onions. The meat is stringy, which is good. Maggots don't hang around bones much. You tap the edge of the bowl, shake a few of the wrigglers off, and decide to focus on texture. First bite, hot, greasy, salty. Second bite, chewier, slightly gamey, possibly rat. You pause, then keep going, because here's the thing. Hunger is a teacher. It teaches you what matters and what doesn't. Cleanliness, optional. Certainty, overrated. And dignity, that's for people who've never eaten food that blinks back. Someone beside you picks a maggot from their bowl and flicks it overboard. Waste not, they mutter, and you swear they're half joking. Maybe. Historians still puzzle over how often pirates got sick from these infestations. Food safety was theoretical. Some argue the maggots themselves weren't harmful, just unpleasant. Others believe repeated exposure helped build resistance, or perhaps it just wore the body down, bite by bite. You eat slowly, chewing past the squishier bits. The broth is hot, which helps. It makes it harder to tell what's meat and what's not. Someone else nearby laughs and says, "Protein's protein." You smile despite yourself. You scrape the bottom of the bowl. It's not that bad, and it's filling, and there's warmth in your belly that wasn't there an hour ago. A maggot sticks to the rim of the tin. You flick it off with your spoon and finish the last gulp. You'll live another day, even if the food tries its best to argue otherwise. The salt gets into everything. It's in your hair, stiff and clumpy from sea spray. It lines your skin, crusted into the creases of your knuckles. It even dusts the deck like someone tried to season the entire ship. But worst of all, it's in your food, all of it, all the time. Today, it's salted fish. Again, you watch as the cook slaps a slab of something vaguely fish-shaped onto a cutting board. It makes a sound like wet paper on stone. The skin is dry and papery, peeling at the edges like parchment left in the sun. He slices it into strips, each one fibrous and pale, and dumps them into a pot already boiling with water mostly. Maybe a few herbs if you squint. But salt? Oh, there's plenty of that. Enough to pickle a memory. A widely accepted fact. Salt was the primary method of preservation aboard pirate ships. It could keep meat and fish from spoiling in the tropical heat, and in theory, extend their shelf life by months. Every food, from pork to cod to even fruit peels, might be brined or buried in salt before setting sail. A lesser-known detail, many pirates suffered from what was later described as salt sickness, not an official disease, but a state of constant dehydration, headaches, and kidney stress caused by consuming salt-heavy diets without enough clean water. The cure? Rain or land, or simply surviving long enough to forget what thirst feels like. You're handed a bowl, fish and broth. That's it. You sniff it. Doesn't smell like much. The fish is pale and stringy, already flaking into the soup like it's trying to escape. You take a spoonful. Salt. More salt. And, yep, salt again. The fish tastes like it was boiled in seawater, which, to be fair, it probably was. There's no subtlety, no balance, just the sharp, immediate sting of salt on your tongue, in your throat, behind your eyes. You cough once, the guy next to you coughs too. It's the only applause this meal will get. Someone makes a joke. Why'd the fish die? Drowned in salt. You manage a smile. Then you take another bite, because it's that. Or starve. You try to chew slowly, hoping your taste buds will eventually surrender, and they do. Halfway through the bowl, you stop noticing the salt, or maybe it's just that everything tastes like wood now. The back of your mouth is numb. Your lips feel chapped. You sip the broth anyway. Historians still discuss how pirate ships managed their salt rations. Some captains bought barrels of salted goods before departure. Others took whatever they could steal. A few ships had saltmasters who handled food preservation, but most didn't. It was eat first, worry later. Your spoon scrapes the bottom of the bowl. There's a rubbery strip of skin down there. Maybe fin, maybe something else. You let it go. You finish and set your bowl aside. Your tongue feels like sandpaper. You'd trade a handful of gold for a single orange, or a piece of bread that didn't crunch like coral. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve and exhale. Even your breath tastes brined, and yet your stomach is full. Your limbs feel steadier. You'll get through the next watch without collapsing. That's all the meal needed to do. The salt may strip your body day by day, but at least it's keeping what's left from rotting. It's a rare day when something smells good. Not edible, not tolerable, but actually good. Warm, savory, almost buttery. The scent floats up from the galley like a memory that doesn't belong on the ship. A smell that reminds you of land, of inns, of real plates and proper meals. The cook is grinning, which is always a little worrying. He gestures toward the table where a lumpy golden brown pastry sits cooling in a pan that probably used to hold cannonballs. Meat pie, he says. Proudly, you and the others lean in like starving cats. The pie isn't pretty. Its crust is cracked like dried mud, and something dark is oozing from one corner. But it's warm, and it smells like it might not kill you, which already puts it ahead of yesterday's fish. A widely accepted fact. Pirates occasionally had access to luxuries, flour, fat, even dried herbs, especially if they'd recently raided a merchant ship or docked at a friendly port. These moments were fleeting, but sometimes a clever cook could cobble together something resembling comfort. A lesser known detail, many pirate ships kept a stash of mystery meat, odds and ends from dried stores, salted leftovers, or even rats, birds, and sea turtles caught along the way. If it could be cooked, it could become pie, and if it could be hidden beneath crust, no one asked too many questions. You're handed a slice. It holds its shape, barely. The crust is thick, browned unevenly, a little greasy. The filling is dark and gelatinous, shot through with bits of something. You see a hint of carrot, maybe turnip, possibly bone. You bite in. It's hot, rich, salty. There's definitely meat. You think it's tender in places, stringy in others. The crust is chewy at the edges, softer toward the center, soaked through with juices that taste of pepper and mystery. And it's good, shockingly good. You blink, you look at the others. They're chewing with the same expression, brows raised, eyes narrowed, not quite trusting their taste buds. One man mutters, "This ain't right." Another says, "Don't care," and takes a bigger bite. You nod silently and eat. Historians still debate the presence of pies aboard ships like these. Some believe they were rare, made only on special occasions. Others think clever ship's cooks made use of every scrap and trick to create meals that lifted morale. Even for an hour, there's a warmth in your chest now, not from rum, but from food, real food. You wipe a bit of grease from your chin and take another bite. The filling's spicy, but not too strong. The texture is strange, but familiar enough to calm your gut. Still, your mind drifts. You wonder what the meat really was. The cook hasn't said. Nobody's asking. You chew slower, poking a bit of sinew with your fork. Definitely not pork. Maybe goat. Could be turtle. Could be not meat at all. And that's when it hits you. It doesn't matter. For once, you're not eating to survive. You're eating because it feels human, because it brings back the memory of a warm room, a full stomach, a time before salt and rats and mold. You finish the last bite slowly, deliberately. You even catch yourself licking your fingers. Another sailor does the same and shrugs. Tastes like tavern food. You nod. A little pie-shaped lie never hurt anyone, probably. And it's still dark when the noise starts. Clanking pots, muted swearing, the telltale thunk of something being stirred with too much muscle and too little finesse. You open one eye. There's no rooster crowing on this ship, no sunshine filtering through linen curtains. Just the creak of the hull, the slap of waves, and the smell of something slightly scorched. You groan. It's breakfast. You shuffle to the galley, barefoot and half asleep. A few other sailors are already clustered near the heat, holding bowls and rubbing their arms for warmth. The cook doesn't look at anyone. He's hunched over a pot, stirring with a ladle that's probably older than you are. Steam rises, so does smoke. Gruel, he grunts. Don't ask what's in it. You don't. A widely accepted fact. Breakfast aboard a pirate ship was a grim affair. The goal wasn't joy, it was function. Gruel, a watery porridge made from flour or oats, or whatever could be pulverized into paste, was a common start to the day. No sugar, no milk, just heat, thickness, and enough mass to sit in your stomach like ballast. A lesser known detail, some crews used roasted flour or scorched biscuits crumbled into hot water to make ship coffee. Not actually coffee, of course, but an earthy, bitter brew meant to wake you up. Some even added molasses or rum when the cook was in a good mood. Today he isn't. You're handed a bowl. It's gray. The surface ripples as if it's still unsure of itself. A few lumps bob like islands in a foggy sea. You lift the spoon. It sags under the weight. The smell is burned, not entirely unpleasant, but close to charcoal. You blow on it and take a bite. It's hot. That's the best thing you can say. It's hot. It doesn't taste like much. Just boiled flour with a hint of ash, but it fills your mouth. It slides down your throat like wet plaster. You feel it land in your belly like a small anchor. You chew the next bite out of habit, even though there's nothing to chew. It sticks to your teeth. The edges are gummy. A burned bit hits your tongue sharp, bitter, and you almost spit it out, but swallow instead. Another man beside you adds a splash of rum to his bowl. Breakfast of survivors, he says, and stirs it in. You wish you had rum. Historians still debate whether this kind of morning meal helped or hurt pirate performance. Some say it provided slow-burning fuel for long labor hours. Others argue it was nutritionally empty and did more psychological harm than good. Still, a warm bowl of anything was better than waking up empty. You lean against the wall, warming your hands on the bowl. It's oddly comforting, like holding a rock you've convinced yourself is worth something. The ship sways, and your stomach sways with it, but it doesn't protest. That's new. You finish the gruel in a few slow gulps. One sailor licks his bowl. Another pretends to gag and immediately gets smacked with a spoon. No one laughs, but a few of you smile behind your hands. You hand your bowl back and stretch. The sky outside is still gray. Your body aches, but you're not hungry. Not really. There's something in your stomach that wasn't there before. Something warm, however flavorless, however sticky. The day begins. It starts with a smell, not the usual kind. This one's sharp, vinegary, like sour fruit left in the sun. Your nose wrinkles before you even realize why. And then it hits you someone's opened one of the old barrels, and that can mean only one thing. Pickled something. You make your way over, curiosity stronger than caution, and find a group of crewmates already gathered around the open cask. One of them dips in a ladle and pulls out a lump of something, greenish, possibly a cucumber once, maybe, hard to say. The brine sloshes and fizzes slightly, like it's been sitting too long, thinking too hard. Someone jokes, if it moves, stab it. No one laughs. A widely accepted fact, Pickling was one of the few ways to preserve vegetables on long voyages. Onions, cabbage, root vegetables, even eggs, if it fit in a barrel and didn't immediately dissolve, someone tried to pickle it. The salty, acidic brine fought off rot and gave pirates rare access to vitamin C. A lesser known detail: when the barrels were sealed too long or poorly stored, fermentation could go haywire. What came out wasn't always edible. Sometimes it hissed, sometimes it foamed, and sometimes it just exploded. You're handed a scoop, floating bits of what look like onion skin, cabbage shreds, and maybe something beet adjacent swirl in a cloudy bath. The smell is sharp, like your nose is being pickled too. You brace yourself. First bite, tangy, not terrible. Second bite, weirdly fizzy. Third bite, your tongue goes a little numb. You glance at the others. One is chewing slowly, head tilted like he's listening to his own jaw. Another is poking a pale, squishy object on his plate and whispering something about mushroom or squid. No one's really sure. No one really wants to know. And yet, it's food. It's something different. Your mouth, long dulled by salt and rot, wakes up. There's texture. There's surprise. There's the faint, delicious sting of vinegar cutting through your usual boredom. Historians still wonder whether these ferments did more good than harm. Some believe they helped fend off scurvy and gut diseases. Others argue the balance between healthy bacteria and utter disaster was razor thin. Either way, pirates gambled every time they reached for the barrel. You find a chunk of something crunchy, purple-edged, and not entirely unpleasant. Your brain shouts turnip, even if it isn't. You chew with cautious hope. Next to you, someone belches deeply and says, "Taste like victory." You nod, swallowing another forkful of zingy brine and fiber. You can feel your face flushing from the acid. It's intense, but kind of exhilarating. Like your taste buds just fought a storm and won. You scrape your bowl clean. By the time the barrel's closed again, half the crew has puffy cheeks and slightly panicked expressions. But no one's groaning, not yet. You call that a win. There's a quiet energy now. Eyes are brighter, postures straighter. Maybe it's the vinegar. Maybe it's the thrill of eating something that didn't start out as punishment. You lean against a crate and let your stomach settle. It growls, but in a curious way, not angry, just confused. It'll sort itself out. Eventually, out here, everything's a risk, and sometimes the risk tastes kind of amazing. And it started as a rumor. Most things on a pirate ship do. Someone swore they saw coconuts, real ones, hanging off a cluster of palms as the ship skirted a small tropical island 2 days ago. No port, no settlement, no flag flying, just trees. And coconuts, glorious, heavy, water-filled coconuts. At first, everyone laughed. Too far, too risky, not worth the detour. But then the weevils hit the flour sack again, and the rainwater ran low. And tonight's dinner was a stew that included something with feathers and 3 legs. Suddenly, coconuts didn't sound like a joke. They sounded like a rescue plan, a widely accepted fact. Pirates relied heavily on foraging when near islands. Fresh fruit, especially coconuts, was a luxury that provided hydration, energy, and the rare experience of not hating every bite. A lesser known detail: coconuts were sometimes hoarded and hidden away like treasure. Men would stash them in hammocks, behind crates, even beneath their shirts. There are accounts of crews breaking into fights over a single green one found rolling in a corner. You volunteer for the landing party. You row in silence with three others, the oars dipping into the turquoise water like clockwork. The island rises before you, lush, steep, a knot of green knuckled into the ocean. You land on a narrow beach, waves licking at your boots. The trees are close, and yes, there they are, dozens of them, big and round and hanging like prizes from above. First one to get one keeps it, someone says. That's all it takes. The race is clumsy, slippery, loud. You climb, not gracefully, not skillfully, but the promise of coconut milk has lit a fire in your bones. The trunk is rough, your fingers sting, and your shirt snags on bark. But after a few awkward grunts and curses, you reach a bunch. You hack at the stem with a small blade. It falls, thunks onto the sand below. Victory. You clamber down like a drunk monkey and land beside your prize. It's green, thick-shelled, slightly warm from the sun. You twist off the top, sloppily, and slurp. It's perfect, cool, slightly sweet, cloudy, coconut water, straight from nature. It rolls across your tongue like an apology for everything you've eaten this week. You pass it around. Nobody cares about germs. You're pirates. You've shared worse. Historians still debate how many tropical resources were used sustainably by pirates. Some claim ships overforaged, decimating small islands. Others argue that pirates, unlike Navy vessels, only took what they could carry and moved on. Back on the ship, the loot is celebrated like gold. Coconuts are halved and shared. Some are shaved and fried with old biscuits to make sweet mash. One man mixes the milk with rum and calls it heaven's elbow. Even the captain smiles. You curl up in your hammock later, belly full of something fresh, something bright, a reminder that not every day has to taste like mildew and despair. Outside, someone's cracking open the last one. You hear the thud, the slosh, and the laugh that follows, and for the first time in a while, you fall asleep with a grin. There's a sound every pirate comes to dread, more than cannon fire, more than sails ripping in the wind. It's the clink of an empty bottle hitting the floor. Today it's your bottle, and it's empty. You tilt it anyway, just in case the sea gods missed a drop. Nothing. Not even enough to moisten your tongue. You glance around, but the rest of the crew is doing the same little bottle dance. Some are sniffing corks. Others are licking the necks like desperate lovers. And the cook, he's locking the rum stores. A widely accepted fact. Rum was more than just a drink aboard pirate ships. It was currency, comfort, medicine, and sometimes the only clean-ish fluid available. Pirates drank it straight, mixed with water making grog, or with lime juice, and sugar if they were lucky enough to have all three. A lesser-known detail: despite their reputation, pirates didn't guzzle endlessly, at least not always. Some captains rationed alcohol strictly, using it as a reward or bargaining chip. Others cut it with vinegar, herbs, or even seawater to stretch supplies or keep tempers in check. You stare at the closed rum chest like it just insulted your mother. The crew murmurs. It's not loud, but it's sharp, uneasy, like everyone's trying to figure out who to blame for the rationing. It's not the cook's fault. He's just the gatekeeper. It's not the weather's fault, though a storm did knock over one barrel last week. So maybe it's the wind's fault, or the man who spilled half a mug while dancing, or maybe it's your own for not savoring what you had. You hear a voice. If there's no rum, there'll be mutiny. It's half a joke. Maybe you know how this goes. 1 day without rum is grumbling. 2 days is fighting. 3 days, that's when someone gets tossed overboard. You try to focus. The ship is still moving. The sky is bright. You're fed, barely and breathing. But the absence of rum is like a hole in the day, an ache where the ritual used to be. No fire at the back of your throat, no heat in your belly, no soft glow behind your eyes. Someone passes you a tin mug with a splash left in it. You raise an eyebrow. They nod once. You sip. It's watered down, thin, probably touched by 6 different mouths. But it's rum. The flavor is still there, sweet, smoky, with that familiar burn that makes you feel momentarily invincible. Historians still debate how central alcohol was to pirate morale. Some say it held ships together, others argue it tore them apart, but they all agree on this. Rum was never just about drinking. It was about memory, power, escape, and sometimes survival. Later, you overhear whispers of someone planning to sneak below and borrow a bottle. The cook is sleeping lightly tonight. The captain has the key. Nobody says anything out loud, but you all think the same thing. Is it worth it? You lie back in your hammock, hands behind your head. The ship creaks. Someone starts humming a song. It sounds half drunk, even though no one really is. You close your eyes and try to taste that last sip again. Rum or no rum, you'll make it through the night, probably. The first time you hear the shout, "Turtle off the port bow," you think it's a joke. Then half the crew scrambles toward the railing. You follow, squinting into the glinting waves, and there it is, a large, slow-moving hump paddling with lazy dignity through the water, a green sea turtle. Unaware, it's just become the most valuable thing anyone's seen in days. A rope is thrown, a net. A man nearly dives headfirst. It's less a hunt and more a desperate group flail. After several splashes, curses, and one near drowning, the turtle is hauled aboard, its flippers batting at the deck with soft thuds, eyes blinking slowly like it's more annoyed than afraid. The cook beams. "Soup tonight," he says, patting the shell like it's a barrel of rum. A widely accepted fact, turtles were considered a delicacy at sea, and not just by pirates. They were slow, easy to catch, and provided fresh meat that was rich, oily, and relatively safe from parasites. They also produced eggs, which could be stored or eaten raw. A lesser known detail, some pirates kept turtles alive aboard for days or even weeks, turning the hold into a grim sort of pantry. Turtles could survive without food or water for long periods, making them a kind of walking, flippered emergency ration. The soup starts simmering within hours. You catch the scent from across the deck, rich, savory, like someone finally remembered how seasoning works. There's a hint of garlic stolen from a raid, some dried bay leaves, salvaged from a busted spice crate, and something smoky, maybe pepper, maybe gunpowder. Hard to say. You're handed a bowl. The broth is deep brown, slick with oil, dotted with soft green flecks. A hunk of turtle meat floats in the center, dark, tender, somewhere between chicken and beef. You dip your spoon in, let the heat rise to your face, and take a sip. It's glorious, warm, complex, meaty. The flavors unfold one by one, earthy, salty, with a richness that coats your tongue like velvet. It's not just food, it's indulgence. You chew slowly, savoring each bite like it might vanish mid-mouth. The meat is firm, not stringy. The broth soaks into the stale biscuit someone slipped onto your tray. It's the closest you've come to a real meal since, well, since land. Historians still argue whether turtle hunting was sustainable. In some regions, turtles were over-harvested by passing ships. Others believe pirate crews took only what they needed, moving too quickly to deplete local populations. Either way, it's easy to see why they were prized. You hear murmurs around you. Best meal in weeks. Reminds me of home. Think we can catch another? Someone asks if turtle shell is good for anything. Someone else's spoon clinks against bone. You scrape your bowl clean, and for a brief moment, maybe two, you feel something strange. Not just full, not just warm, but restored. Like food really can be comfort, or even joy. The cook claps the empty pot and grins. Told ya, turtle's worth its weight in rum. You agree. Later, as the stars stretch across the sky and the ship rocks you gently like a cradle, you think of the turtle, how it swam, how it blinked, how it gave its quiet, leathery life so you could eat something that didn't feel like punishment. You don't feel guilty, just grateful. You know those hard, round biscuits pirates called hardtack? The ones so tough that sailors joked they could build a ship's hull with them? Today, you get to watch the ancient and secret ritual of biscuit mending. The cook holds a particularly crusty, cracked biscuit, the kind that could probably break a tooth on contact, and sets it down on a worn wooden table. He grabs a small pot of boiling water and carefully pours a thin stream over it, just enough to soften the edges without turning it into mush. Then he presses it gently between his palms, like coaxing a stubborn mule. A widely accepted fact. Hardtack was the staple of long voyages, dried, baked flour biscuits designed to last for months, if not years. They were notoriously hard and nearly impossible to chew without soaking. A lesser-known detail. Pirates developed several methods to fix these bricks of baked despair. Some soaked them in water, others in broth or even beer, trying to reclaim some semblance of softness. Others crumbled them over stews, turning them into a gritty porridge. Some sailors even invented crude biscuit cakes by layering softened hardtack with scraps of meat or fat. You watch as the cook hands a softened biscuit to a sailor. The man takes a tentative bite, teeth scraping against the softened edges. His face contorts slightly, part pain, part determination. Better than yesterday, he says. You nod, not quite convinced. You remember your own first encounter with hardtack, a near-fatal crunch that left you wary of dry food for weeks. Historians still wonder how effective these biscuit repairs really were. Some suggest it was more psychological, a comfort ritual in a sea of uncertainty. Others believe that soaking, combined with salty broths, actually made the biscuits somewhat edible. You pick up a piece yourself, It's still tough, but you dip it quickly into a bowl of thin broth. The crust softens, darkens, and takes on a texture somewhere between leather and stale cake. You bite. It's bland. It's rough. It's better. The cook laughs and says, "It's a meal, sorta." Around you, the ship creaks and groans. Somewhere in the distance, a seagull cries. You chew slowly. Each bite is a reminder. Survival on the seas isn't about feasting, it's about making do, about finding small pleasures in the worst of provisions. You finish your biscuit, swallow, and glance up. The horizon is a flat line, the sky a pale wash, and tomorrow, there will be more biscuit, more stew, more stories to tell. But for now, this brittle, softened chunk of history is enough. You might think pirates lived entirely on salt and misery, and for the most part, you'd be right. But every now and then, hidden somewhere beneath barrels and rope coils, was a small miracle spices. They were precious, exotic, dangerous to smuggle, worth more than gold to some. A pinch of cinnamon, a dusting of pepper, or a whisper of nutmeg could transform a bland meal into something almost edible. The cook proudly shows you a small wooden box, weathered but intact, filled with tiny burlap sacks. Each contains a spice, peppercorns that look like black seeds from another world, a pale pile of cinnamon powder that smells like a sun-drenched forest, and a few dried leaves of something you don't recognize, but trust is important. A widely accepted fact. Pirates often captured spy ships or raided merchant vessels carrying these coveted goods. Sometimes they kept a small share for themselves, stashing away handfuls for the worst days at sea. A lesser known detail, spices weren't just for flavor, they were believed to help preserve food, fight illness, and even ward off bad luck. Some pirates were convinced that a pinch of clove could keep scurvy away better than lemons. You watch as the cook carefully sprinkles pepper into a pot of watery stew. The smell shifts instantly, sharp, warm, promising. Your mouth waters. You're handed a bowl. The stew, once a dull gray soup, now smells like something alive. You take a spoonful and taste the difference immediately. The pepper cuts through the salt and grease, adding bite and complexity. There's a hint of sweetness from the cinnamon, balancing the bitterness. You savor it. For the first time in days, the food feels like a choice, like a comfort, like a small rebellion against the monotony and hardship. Historians still debate how often pirates truly enjoyed spices. Some argue the harsh conditions made the luxury rare, while others believe the presence of spice was a point of pride and morale. As you eat, your thoughts wander to the origins of these spices, faraway lands, bustling markets, secret trade routes. How many lives and stories had traveled across oceans just to reach this small wooden box? You pause, savoring the moment. The ship creaks, the wind whispers through the sails, and somewhere in the distance, gulls call to each other. It's not just food, it's history, survival, hope, and for now, that's more than enough. You lean back, letting the warmth spread through your chest. The spice lingers on your tongue, a quiet reminder that even in the roughest times, small joys endure. You've been at sea for what feels like an eternity, and the rations have been less than inspiring. But today, the cook announces something different. Salted fish. Not fresh fish, mind you. Those were a luxury. No, this is the preserved kind, soaked in brine and packed tight in barrels to survive the long voyage. The smell hits your nostrils before you even reach the galley. Sharp, salty, a bit fishy, but promising, a widely accepted fact. Salted fish was a staple aboard pirate ships and merchant vessels alike. It was cheap, preserved well, and provided essential protein for sailors during long stretches without fresh catch. A lesser known detail, the quality of salted fish varied wildly. Some barrels contained fish so tough and salty they could double as doorstops, while others, if properly prepared, could be quite palatable. Pirates learned to soak, boil, and cook the fish to reduce saltiness and soften the tough texture. The cook passes around thick slabs of the stuff, and you reluctantly take a piece. The texture is dense, almost leathery. The flavor is intense, briny, with a smoky undertone from the way it was dried. You bite carefully. It's salty, almost overwhelmingly so at first, but as you chew, the flavors open up. There's a subtle sweetness beneath the salt, a reminder of the ocean itself. The meat is firm, but tender enough to tear with your teeth. You dip your piece into a thin broth, letting the liquid wash away some of the salt. The combination is surprisingly satisfying, filling the void in your stomach and giving you strength for the day. Historians still debate the exact methods pirates used to prepare salted fish. Some say they soaked it in rainwater or fresh water collected from islands, while others suggest they boiled it with herbs and whatever vegetables were available to improve the taste. As you eat, you reflect on the resilience required to turn such humble ingredients into sustenance. Salted fish isn't gourmet, but it's survival, hard, salty, and real. You glance at your crewmates. Some chew grimly, others seem almost content. For now, that's enough. Outside, the waves lap gently against the hull, and the sky is tinged with early morning pink. You savor the taste of the sea, knowing it will carry you forward, one salty bite at a time. You know the rats are everywhere, scurrying beneath your feet, hiding in the shadows, feasting on the crumbs and scraps that pirates leave behind. But today, they're not just pests, they're a problem. You hear the cook grumble about missing supplies, flour gone, salt pilfered, rum bottles tipped over and emptied, and fingers point toward the ever-present ship rats. A widely accepted fact, rats were a constant companion on ships during the age of sail, thriving in the cramped, damp holds. They ate food stores, gnawed on ropes and wood, and spread disease. A lesser-known detail, some pirates actually trapped and ate rats in desperate times. The flavor was reportedly gamey and unpleasant, but it was protein nonetheless. You find yourself oddly fascinated by the tiny creatures. How do they survive the harsh sea? How do they navigate the creaking, swaying labyrinth of wood? How many have crossed oceans on these ships? The cook sets traps, but the rats are cunning, avoiding the bait and snatching food from right under noses. Historians still debate how much damage rats caused versus how much pirates managed to control them. Some suggest rats contributed to shipwrecks by annoying critical lines. Others think their presence was just an annoying fact of maritime life. You watch as a rat darts past, tail flicking, eyes bright and unrepentant. It disappears into a hole near the cannonballs. For a moment, you consider the rat's life, a tiny, tenacious survivor in a world of salt and danger. You shake your head. You're not quite ready to join the rat club. Instead, you focus on guarding your rations, knowing the real battle for survival happens not just against the sea, but beneath your own feet. There's a smell below decks, sharp, sour, slightly sweet, and unmistakably cheese. You wrinkle your nose and follow it to a small barrel tucked into the corner of the hold. The cook opens it carefully, revealing a mass of something white and fuzzy nestled atop a lump of what was once cheese. A widely accepted fact, pirates often carried preserved dairy, such as hard cheeses, to add variety and calories to their diets. These cheeses were aged and hardened to survive long voyages, a lesser known detail due to the damp, salty conditions aboard ship. Cheese often developed mold and strange textures, making it a risky but sometimes necessary treat. Some crews considered moldy cheese a delicacy, others called it poison. You're offered a taste. The cook assures you it's safe, despite the fuzzy patches. You bite in. The texture is crumbly and surprisingly creamy beneath the mold. The flavor is strong, earthy, tangy, a little funky. Your nose wrinkles again, but you swallow. It's not bad. It's alive. Historians still debate how much dairy pirates truly consumed. Some accounts suggest they avoided cheese due to spoilage risks, while others mention it as a prized ration. As you eat, you wonder about the stories that cheese could tell, the places it's been, the hands that made it, the sea salt it soaked up. You glance around the hold, barrels of flour, salted meat, pickled vegetables, and now moldy cheese. A rough symphony of smells and textures. It's not gourmet, it's survival, and somehow that makes it taste better. You spot it first as a pile of crystallized lumps, wrapped in coarse brown paper. Sugar, precious, sticky, and often hoarded like treasure aboard pirate ships. A widely accepted fact, sugar was highly valued in the age of sail, used to sweeten hardtack, make rum cocktails, or preserve fruits. Pirates sometimes raided sugar shipments, knowing its worth in trade. And morale, a lesser known detail. Sugar was rarely pure on pirate ships. It often contained grit, dirt, and even small insects, unavoidable in tropical storage conditions. Eating it straight could be a gritty, unpleasant experience. You remember the last time you tried a pinch of sugar from a barrel. The sweetness was there, but so was the crunch of sand and the occasional surprise of something chewy, probably an insect. You're handed a small spoonful, warned to savor carefully. The flavor is sweet, yes, but with a rough texture that keeps you alert. You imagine how much cleaner sugar must taste back home, in markets and kitchens far from the ocean's salty breath. Historians still debate how pirates manage sugar storage, with some suggesting clever preservation techniques, while others describe foul barrels forgotten and left to rot. You watch as the cook mixes sugar into a thin gruel, trying to mask the gritty texture. The crew eats, grateful for any sweetness at all. Outside, the sun sets orange over the horizon. You lick your lips, sticky with sugar and salt, thinking about how even the sweetest things come with a price. And on a pirate ship, nothing was ever simple. The talk starts as whispers. Cocoa beans? On a pirate ship? You raise an eyebrow. Pirates and cocoa? Sounds like a legend spun from shore leave and tavern tales. But here it is, a small battered sack of dried beans, a widely accepted fact. Pirates occasionally carried cocoa, either stolen from Spanish ships or traded in Caribbean ports to make a hot, energizing drink. A lesser known detail, the process of making pirate cocoa was far from the smooth, sugary chocolate you know today. Beans were roasted over open fires, ground roughly, and mixed with water or even seawater, resulting in a bitter, gritty beverage. The cook prepares a pot, stirring the dark, foamy brew with a wooden spoon. The aroma is rich, earthy, and oddly comforting. You take a cup, the taste hits you bitter, smoky, a bit astringent. It wakes your senses, sharpens your focus. You can almost imagine sitting in a smoky tavern, plotting your next raid. But there's a rumor among the crew. Some say cocoa beans bring bad luck, that ships carrying too much cocoa are cursed to sink or be lost at sea. Historians still wonder whether this superstition was widespread or just a pirate's excuse for misfortune. You ponder it as you sip, the bitterness lingering on your tongue like a secret. Maybe it's just the sea playing tricks, or maybe, just maybe, the cocoa carries a little magic of its own. You drink more, because on a pirate ship, every moment of warmth and sweetness counts. It begins with a low tide and a gleam of desperation. The lookout spotted a rocky shoal during yesterday's approach to a secluded cove. Jagged stones, jutting out from the turquoise shallows, dotted with the telltale shimmer of barnacles and clustered shadows that just might be mussels or oysters. Today, a party rows out at dawn. You're in the boat, bucket in hand, heart half hoping for treasure, half fearing you'll end up poisoned. Because this is pirate roulette, a widely accepted fact. Pirates and sailors often foraged for shellfish, oysters, mussels, clams when making landfall or hugging island shores. These salty morsels were abundant, required no hunting, and added desperately needed protein and variety to the diet. A lesser known detail, not all shellfish were safe. Some harbored dangerous bacteria or biotoxins, especially in warm, stagnant waters. Pirates had no way to test them. They relied on luck, local knowledge, or the old wait a few hours and see who keels over method. You scrape a cluster of mussels from a rock, toss them into the pail, and grin at the others. The sea air is warm, the sun low on the horizon, the tide licking your ankles as you crouch and gather your prize. Back on the ship, the cook sets up a boiling pot, salt water, seaweed for flavor, a splash of sour wine to cut the fishiness. He dumps in the mussels, shells and all. The steam rises like fog, bringing with it a briny, earthy smell that turns heads. You gather around, bowls in hand. The mussels pop open, one by one, orange flesh glistening inside blackened shells. You spear one with your knife, bring it to your mouth, and chew, tender, chewy, bursting with flavor. You close your eyes and let it sit on your tongue. The taste is the sea itself, wild, mineral, alive. But you also know the risk. Someone to your left eats cautiously, someone to your right eats recklessly. One man laughs and swallows 5 in a row. Historians still debate the role of shellfish in maritime survival. Some records praise it as a life-saving resource. Others warn that poorly handled or toxic shellfish may have cost crews dearly. One legend tells of a sloop's entire crew struck down after an oyster feast. Some say it was poison, others say bad luck. You keep eating. There's no turning back now. If these shellfish are cursed, you'll find out by nightfall. But for now, they're delicious. You mop up the broth with a crust of hardtack softened in the bottom of your bowl. It's salty, greasy, rich with marine flavor. One of the best meals you've had in weeks. That night, you wait, not for sleep, but for symptoms, a cramp, a twinge, anything. But none come, just the gentle rocking of the ship and the distant sound of someone snoring below deck. You smile. Tonight, the sea gave. Tomorrow, who knows? And you've heard the stories whispered in the dark corners of the galley, always with nervous laughs and averted eyes, that when the storms rage too long, when no island is in sight, and the barrels are empty, not just low, not just scraped, but truly empty, there's a final resort, a last dreadful tier of pirate cuisine, leather and candle fat. You think they're joking until the cook stops laughing. A widely accepted fact in extreme starvation, sailors sometimes boiled leather, belts, shoes, or rigging scraps, trying to soften them into something vaguely chewable. Candle wax, made of tallow or animal fat, was also eaten, though it offered little nutrition and sometimes made matters worse. A lesser-known detail: some old hands knew how to prepare leather to reduce its bitterness. They'd scrape off mold, soak it for hours, then boil it with spices if any existed, or even add seawater to draw out some of the salt from old rigging lines. You sit by the pot now, watching strips of bootlace curl in hot water. You've had bad meals before. You've eaten weevil-infested biscuit. You've gnawed through dried meat, tougher than rope. But this feels like a line crossed. The smell is strange, oily, sour, like a burnt glove in a salt bath. The cook hands you a bowl with 2 thin strips of boiled leather and a dab of tallow, already half melted from the heat. You stare at it for a long time. The leather is tough, really tough. You have to saw through it with your teeth. The flavor is not a flavor, more like the ghost of flavor, a memory of something that once mattered. You try the tallow next. It coats your tongue in greasy wax, clings to your teeth, leaves a film in your throat. It's awful, it's humiliating, and yet, it's food, barely. Historians still argue over how often these desperate rations were actually eaten. Some claim it's exaggerated sailor lore. Others point to ship logs and accounts of men driven half mad from hunger chewing belts until their gums bled. You keep chewing. Your jaw aches, your stomach turns, but it's something, and in this floating world where survival is measured by what you're willing to put in your mouth, you suppose you've crossed a threshold. Later, lying in your hammock, you listen to the groans of a few unfortunate souls who had a bit more tallow than you. The ship creaks like a stomach rumbling. A rat scurries overhead. The air is heavy with the scent of boiled desperation, but you're alive, and in the end, That's what pirate food was really about. Not flavor, not satisfaction, not even fullness, just staying alive, one chewed belt at a time. And you spot it just after dawn, the dark, jagged edge of land rising from the pale water like the back of a sleeping beast. An island, real solid, unmoving, and your stomach leaps before your feet do. The crew crowds the railing, faces lit with the same desperate hope. Not salted, not dried, not infested or gnawed on by rats. Real food, birds, maybe even a pig if the gods are smiling. You help row ashore, boots splashing into soft sand. The island smells of wet bark, distant flowers, and something else, promise, a widely accepted fact. Pirate ships often anchored at uninhabited islands to restock food, water, and sometimes even lumber. These stops were crucial for long voyages, allowing crews to hunt wild animals, gather coconuts and tropical fruit, and escape the stench of their own ship for a day or two, a lesser known detail. These islands were rarely the paradises sailors imagined. Some were stripped bare by previous crews. Others were home to swarms of biting insects, poisonous plants, or fruit that looked delicious, but might kill you slowly from the inside out. The hunt begins quickly. You push through palms and twisted vines, scanning for coconuts, berries, lizards, anything edible. The first find is a cluster of small orange fruits. One of the younger deckhands grabs a handful, biting into them like apples. 15 minutes later, he's vomiting into a bush. Turns out they weren't oranges. Not even close. You settle for coconuts. Dry, fibrous, more effort than reward. Still, the water inside tastes clean, slightly sweet, slightly earthy, and blessedly cold. You ration what you can into a bottle. A few others manage to trap small birds, roasting them on skewers over driftwood fires. You get half a leg, charred and chewy. Not a banquet, but enough to dream. Historians still debate how successful these island forages truly were. Some journals speak of feasts, fish, mangoes, wild goats, while others describe days of failure and food poisoning. You lie back on the sand, chewing on the last bit of bird. The wind shifts, a cloud drifts past the sun. You look up at the sky, now veiled in thin gray. The initial thrill of landfall is fading, replaced by a more sobering realization. The island has given you what it could, and it wasn't much. Your crew sits scattered in the clearing, surrounded by cracked coconut shells, a few half-plucked bones, and the echoing quiet of hunger half satisfied. One man is crouched by a tree trunk, trying to peel bark and chew the white pulp underneath. Another is chasing a crab with a knife, moving in slow, clumsy lunges, as though the crab's existence offends him. The cook, ever the realist, digs a small pit and begins smoking whatever is salvageable. A few oily bird wings, some tough meat from a scavenged iguana, and one crab leg that made the ultimate sacrifice. Smoke curls up into the canopy like a prayer in reverse. You join him. You're handed a skewer, a long stick with one sizzling mystery morsel on the end. You bite into it carefully. It tastes, well, it tastes like effort, slightly bitter, charred, unidentifiable, but undeniably warm. and real. You chew slowly. This is the feast. The cook mutters beside you, not looking up. This is what kings get at sea. A few of the men chuckle dryly. Someone breaks open a second coconut and passes it around like a bottle of wine. There's camaraderie here. Not joy exactly, but something adjacent, something like gratitude, filtered through exhaustion. You tilt your head back and close your eyes. The sand warm beneath you. For a brief moment, you're not starving, not swaying in a hammock, not wondering what the next ship will bring. You're full enough. The island is quiet. No birds now, no monkeys, no sound but the crackle of the fire and the faint hush of the tide. Historians still wonder how many pirate crews met their end on islands like this, marooned, sick, out of water, lured by the mirage of plenty into long, slow death. Others, the lucky ones, found sustenance, just enough to refit, refill, and ride the wind once more. You open your eyes and stare at the smoke drifting up through the palms. You wonder which kind of crew you're on. You wonder what this island will take in return for the few scraps it gave. But mostly, you're tired. You feel the gentle tug of sleep trying to carry you under. Maybe it's the warmth of the fire, or the faint fullness in your belly, or the way the sea, now distant, finally stopped roaring in your ears. For now, the ship can wait. You lie back in the sand, arms behind your head, and let the smoke and silence settle into your bones. It starts with the wind, soft at first, just a hum through the rigging, then firmer, whistling, carrying the scent of rain and salt, and something sharp beneath it, like copper scraped on stone. You're back aboard now. The island lies behind you, just a darker smear on the horizon. The sea has changed, swollen, moody. The crew knows. They feel it in their knuckles, in the shifting air. A storm is coming, and what do pirates do before a storm? They eat, or at least they try. The cook moves fast, barking orders, grabbing barrels, sealing what he can, and heating what he must. Fires can't be lit once the winds hit full, so now is the time for hot food, even if it's just the scraps that remain. A widely accepted fact. Storms at sea were brutal, chaotic, and left little room for eating. Before a gale hit, cooks rushed to prepare stews or broths that could be stored and eaten cold or lukewarm days later. A full belly meant steadier hands, clearer minds, and a slightly better chance of surviving. A lesser-known detail: some pirate crews believed eating certain foods before a storm brought luck or curses. A spoonful of salted pork before dawn might grant safe passage. A bite of fruit during thunder could doom the voyage. Superstition ran as deep as hunger. The cook ladles a thick stew into cracked bowls. It's a hodgepodge leftover bird from the island, hardtack crumbled and soaked into the broth, a few stray beans, even a dried fig he's been hoarding since Barbados. You sit with the others, cross-legged on the damp deck, back braced against a barrel, bowl steaming in your hands. You sip. It's warm, rich, chaotic. There's no name for this meal, no recipe, no logic, just heat and salt and a dozen stories tangled into one pot. It tastes like fear and comfort, like desperation softened by fire. The sky darkens. A boom rolls across the clouds. Distant thunder, still too far to be a threat, but close enough to hush the crew. The ocean stirs. You eat faster. No one speaks much. Just the clink of spoons, the hiss of wind. A few men mutter old sayings. A full gut sails straighter. No rum before rain. Don't chew with lightning near. You wipe the bowl clean with your fingers. Someone passes around a final strip of jerky, another a stale biscuit. You take both, more for the ritual than the nourishment. Historians still wonder how pirates coped with storms nutritionally. Some say they fasted through rough waters, conserving strength. Others think hot meals were as much for morale as survival, a moment to remind themselves they were human before the sea tried to prove otherwise. You stand, bowl empty, belly just full enough to feel the weight of the moment. The wind howls now, rain speckles the sails. The horizon vanishes behind a wall of gray. The cook tightens a rope, ties down his pots, and mutters, "She'll rock us hard tonight." You nod, grip the rail, and feel your boots shift with the first real pitch. And in that moment, heart steady, belly warm, rain touching your face, you realize you've made it this far through spoiled meat, infested biscuit, cursed cocoa, and desperate meals carved from bark and bone. You're a pirate, and you've survived your hunger, for tonight anyway. Now the storm can rage. Let the wind whistle and the rain dance across the sails. Let the waves lift the ship like the breath of something ancient and unseen. You've eaten. You've endured. Your hammock rocks gently, swaying with the rhythm of the sea. Each creak of the timbers is a lullaby. Each droplet tapping against the deck is a quiet metronome, measuring the slow drift into dreams. Around you, the crew settles, cloaks pulled tight, boots unlaced, heads bowed in sleep or prayer. The lantern light dims, replaced by moonlight filtered through cloud and rain. Even the rats seem to have curled into corners, silent and still. You breathe slower now, in, hold, out. The salt in your throat fades, the ache in your belly softens. You remember the stew, the fire, the island wind, and you let the memory settle like warmth in your chest. The sea doesn't hate you, it only tests you. And tonight, you've passed, so close your eyes. Let the ship carry you. Let the storm sing you to sleep.